All right, I'm going to call this finance meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, before I seek a motion to adopt the agenda, I wanted to explain to commissioners, you'll notice that the request from Clerk Smith isn't on here. The next day I read the Constitution, the relevant parts, the state law. I needed 3 opinions from an attorney. I got those opinions, and when it all shook down, the way she wanted to do it wasn't going to work. So I did call her. I explained everything to her and what the issues were, and she was very thankful that I took the time to do that. So those of you that were expecting it on the agenda, it wasn't going to work out that way. So with that, is there a motion to approve the agenda? Moved by Lucido, supported by Romano. Please vote. Motion passes 12-0. Approval of the minutes dated September 13th, 2018. Moved by Gillette, support by Kraft. Please vote. Public participation. Motion passes 12-0. Public participation. Does anyone wish to be heard? Seeing none, we'll close public participation. Presentations 2018 second quarterly report. Director Smigiel.
Yeah, what you have before you, of course, is the second quarterly report. I don't have a lot of prepared comments other than as I look through things didn't really jump out at me as anything alarming. I always concentrate on the general fund on the expense side primarily because our revenues come in, as you know, sporadically in different kind of cycles. So I'm not too worried about the expense side. Since personnel is such a large expense in the general fund, I kind of concentrate on that. And through June 30th, the personnel line items had utilized about 46% of the budget. You'd expect close to 50. So we're on target, at least as of that point, in meeting our 5% turnover factor. So that's a good thing. Nothing, again, surprised me too much in the remainder of the general fund or any of the other funds as I kind of went through this at a higher level. Again, last week, I think it was, I mentioned to you, I'd be coming back to you with a forecast for the third quarter through September. I'm working on that, as we speak. So that's probably a more indicative a number to me is what's going on through 3 quarters. So again, I don't have very much in terms of a formal presentation or much more in prepared comments. So
okay. Move to receive and file by Brown, support by Gillette. I don't have any speakers on here. Please vote.
I have a question very quickly. Steve, I'm just curious here, vacant full-time positions. Can you just explain what that is? I have an idea what it is, but I'd like to hear it from you.
Yeah, those are vacant positions. So we got positions in the budget and people either retired or left employment for some reason, and those positions have not been filled yet. You'll notice, as John Kinch indicated last week, there's 80 some on here, and I think he mentioned 80 as a number. So of the, I think there's 208.
You said 80 are community mental
80
health?
or 83 on this particular report, yes.
Okay. So is that normal for CMH, and is it normal for the rest of the county to have these numbers, in your opinion?
Yeah, it is. Mental health has historically run a large or significant number of vacant positions.
Okay.
I don't know if it's always been in the 80s. It's always been high double digits as far as I remember, and that leaves about another 100 positions countywide.
Okay, and that's about normal in your opinion?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Sauger.
Yeah, Steve, are you having any trouble filling a lot of these positions in the county? Why I ask is, as I drive around the county, I always see signs, need help, and it's been going on and on.
I don't think, I'm aware of. We're having particular issues in the mailroom. Mm-hmm. I can tell you that. There's only 4 people, though, so it's a lower paying position. We're having trouble keeping folks in the mailroom for, not because of the wages necessarily, just other issues with the folks that are hiring in. But that, I only have personal knowledge of that because the mailroom reports to me. So countywide, I'm not aware of any specific issues keeping people.
Okay.
I've heard in the past that dispatch is an issue with the sheriff's department. Again, I don't know if it's necessarily wages or the nature of the job.
Okay,
So-
thank you.
All right, seeing no other speakers, please vote. Motion passes 12-0. Department recommendations, adoption of smart millage rate. Steve Smeagol, Director of Finance. Let me get the motion, because I don't know if you need to speak
No,
to it
I
or
think
not.
this is pretty straightforward.
Is there a motion?
Make a motion to postpone, and if I second, I'd like to speak to it, please.
You mean like, well, if, the motion would be a motion to table, and there is no speaking on a motion to table, so I don't know if you want to do that. That's what the motion is. Technically, it's a motion to table, and there is no discussion on the motion to table.
Okay, then I will not make a motion to table, because I do believe it needs to be addressed.
Okay.
I won't make a motion then to table, because I would like to speak to it.
Okay, why don't I let you speak to it before I seek a motion, and then I'll seek a motion, then at least you'll feel better about it.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, I appreciate that. I do feel a little bit better about it. If I, the issue I'd like to bring up is that subsequent to the election recently, where the millage was approved, I asked our county legal department to look at the contract that we have with SMART. And the executive also asked them to do that. And I asked our staff to look for the contracts that we currently have with SMART. It turns out we don't have a contract with SMART. The last contract that we had with SMART expired in 2000. It was initially signed in 96, a 4-year contract that had specific provisions within that contract that has subsequently expired. We have been operating as if there's been a contract. Most of us have been unaware that there's no contract. And I think that the fact that, that there's an opportunity here to set a millage, but also requires certain agreements with SMART moving forward makes some sense. We would not sign a contract with a road builder and then just hand them the money without any specifications of what we expect out of that contractor. We would not engage in any other sort of a contract with a major service provider without having certain things that we expect, whether it's providing certain levels of service or providing certain types of service. And this is an opportunity that we have now to improve our relationship with SMART by negotiating a contract that we can have in place for 4 years, as opposed to giving over the money and wondering what's going to happen. You know, we just wouldn't do that with any other service provider. And I don't think we should do it here. I think this is an opportunity that we should set up a meeting and come up with some priorities we have moving forward when we sign a contract, and we should expect to have a contract. So that's why I think that this is something that we should put off till we have an opportunity to work out what we expect as a board and what our county and our constituents expect as far as delivery of services, as opposed to hoping for the best.
Madam Chair, point of information.
Okay, go ahead.
Those are some great points, and you say you don't want to have a motion to table. My question is, from here, is there a public hearing after this goes to full board, before it goes to full board?
I don't think so, because it's not placing it on the ballot. It's adopting what the voters approved.
I have no problem moving this forward to tomorrow's full board, but I concur with my colleague's sentiment. Makes a lot of sense, and I think who should we reach out to get clarification before we finally vote on this, of come in and explain, where's the contract? I'd like to hear, is that corporation, executive's office, who are we supposed to be?
Okay, it's probably Corp Counsel, number one. Number two, one of the questions is this a county millage, or is it the millage belong to SMART? If it's a county millage, okay, so that's number one. But number two, we don't negotiate contracts, the county exec's office negotiates contracts. So we approve them, but we don't negotiate them. So if there isn't a contract that hasn't been negotiated, we don't have the authority to negotiate one, is what I'm saying. But why don't we, we'll have somebody get with Corp Counsel before tomorrow's meeting and make sure, see if we can have somebody here at this meeting for tomorrow. Okay? So this will be a forward. So the motion is to forward this to full board. Is there a motion? I'll make that motion. Moved by Toko, supported by Duje. Commissioner Duje.
Thank you very much. That being said, although I agree that something should be on paper as far as the legalese portion of it, having Corp Counsel take a look at it, and if not giving us a contract, then at least giving us an opinion whether we do or don't need a contract. I do not want to delay the millage rate inclusion in the December 2018 levy, and I think that's what it's running into. And although I agree with Commissioner Drolet and Commissioner Carabelli, I think it's a good idea for us to have Corp Counsel involved in it and get the Office of County Executive involved in it also.
Okay, and I just asked Crystal to take down a note on what the timeline is that we have to abide by too. So we're going to have that as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
If I can make a comment, Commissioner?
Go ahead.
I do believe where Commissioner Duje is going with this does have some relevance in terms of being able to get the approval out to the local units in time to print the tax bills for December 1st. It's more of a timing thing at this point.
No, exactly.
Yeah,
That's
so-
what I'm saying. We
yeah.
asked to get that timeline. Commissioner Leonetti, you pulled back? Yeah, I think some of my questions were. Okay, Commissioner Gillette.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I agree with your decision to ask for a timeline. I think Commissioner Duje's point is valid, that we need to know what time frame we have. At the same time, if we just simply approve every step of the way, we lose any leverage in negotiating a contract. So I do think that we should take advantage of what time we do have instead of just moving, sort of, blindly. Hey,
Jeez.
Frank, good to see you.
What a coincidence.
Good to see you.
Frank, could you come up to the microphone for a second, please?
I would like to note, by the way, that Frank Kusha has been very instrumental in looking into what relationship we do have with SMART. And it was, Frank, you pointed out to me that it appears we have no contract that's signed that's valid beyond 2000.
No, it was valid beyond that. We've basically been operating under the same principles, though, since then. So
When did that signed contract?
the board would have copies. I'm not.
No, if you look at that contract that you provided, it's a 4-year contract.
I think it was 2006, if I recall correctly.
Well, it was a 4-year contract.
Okay.
And the contract has since expired. Right?
I believe it.
It's post 2006.
The one I have is expired. Yes.
Yes. Have we found any other contract anywhere that is a written contract signed?
I have not seen one.
Yeah. Neither has anybody else. So, this is an important point. This is an opportunity, again, for us to demand certain levels of service for our constituents. And there may be other questions we want to look at in this process as well. So I appreciate the fact that you are interested in making sure we understand the timeline in order to get that on the December tax bill. But we do have a number of months before December, so let's see what that timeline is.
Okay, so I want to get a couple of questions out to him so that he would be ready by tomorrow if he doesn't have the answer today. So the first one is the timeline, which may not be a legal question. The second one is, okay, we don't have a contract. So what happens if we vote no when the voters have said yes? Is there a legal issue there? So if you don't have the
Yes.
answer,
No, I can answer that. I'm very familiar with that. I argued a case in the Supreme Court a couple of years ago, which that was one of the issues. The Michigan Supreme Court issued some rulings on the county's obligation to impose a levy. However, it's still a gray area. This would be heard in the tax tribunal, and my guess is there would be litigation over it. The way I expressed this to SMART, and I was negotiating with SMART over the refund of the recount costs, which they've agreed to pay, is that while we may have stopped entering into contracts, we have a pattern and practice of good faith based on that since then. It probably, I think and the way I expressed it to SMART and the way I'm going to tell you is my legal opinion, is that we're perhaps relying on good faith too much. And we should probably put more things in writing. So that was a suggestion I made to SMART. And that's a suggestion I'm making to you. So I think the voters approved this. It was close, but it's a voter-approved millage. I think it should be levied. I don't see any reason to litigate this at this point. And then basically continue on with an agreement saying that we will levy the millages that have been approved by the voters, and we will give the money to SMART, and SMART will pay for our costs above and beyond, indemnify us for extra costs like the recount. So something simple like that, and that's what I recommend.
Okay, Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm going to address this to Commissioner Drollet. So are you saying we should not move this forward, that we should vote no to move this forward till we get this cleared up? I'm asking. If I may, Chair, through the chair to Commissioner Drollet?
You don't have to go through the chair. It's okay.
I should, really.
Well, I'm going to go back through the chair then to Commissioner Romano. I'm suggesting that we need to take every opportunity to have as much leverage as possible in negotiating a contract with any vendor or of any sort. So if we agree, whether it's a road millage or a sewer repair job or whatever it is, we expect, we detail.
You're not answering my question. I'm sorry to cut you off.
The answer is I don't know, Commissioner Romano.
So I guess my
not,
question is, are you going to vote to move this forward or no?
I'm not going to vote to move it forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. I believe we have more leverage
wait.
if we
He had
hold
the
that in
floor,
abeyance.
and there's a lot of other people, so Commissioner Carabelli.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through the chair to Frank. No. Hey, I got a question for you.
Okay.
Little fuzzy area, just want an opinion. If we approve the levy for this cycle of taxes, can we approve it? And I'm asking this, can we approve it just for this portion of the cycle and we hold off until we get defined answers?
Well, you approve the levy every year, okay?
So
I
we-
recommend approving the levy for this year. SMART is willing and able to negotiate, and I don't think this is a matter of leverage. It's more of a matter of us putting our practices down in writing and having it signed.
Enough said. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I'm going to call Commissioner Myjack on the first round.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a political conflict of interest question to ask our Corp Counsel. A particular commissioner, I'm not going to use any names, works for a particular taxpayer group that spent quite a bit of money in defeat of this proposal, which it didn't pass, it passed barely, but a particular commissioner worked for that group. And is that a conflict of interest for a particular commissioner who worked for this taxpayer group?
No.
Trying to defeat this?
Commissioners are
voting
allowed to have political positions on issues,
Okay.
and they're allowed to vote. This commission, if this commission voted this down, I would then deal with the fallout. I mean, you could do that. Even if we had a contract, you could do that, and I'd still have to deal with the fallout. So
I'm just looking
you
at it
have
for
the right
a
to
conflict of interest when commissioners in the past have, certain legal issues or
No, I
anything
understand.
like that. There's no conflict then.
There's no conflict. What would
that's all I
happen
wanna
is
know.
you would be violating a legal duty, and then a court would order mandamus for you to do the correct things. But you have the right to vote either way. It's just, that would be a strong one. Don't do it. So.
Okay, again, Commissioner Leonetti on the first round.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Frank, I guess in answering Commissioner Carabelli's question, your advice is we go ahead and approve this levy.
Yes.
That way it's all set for this year, but we still can enter into contracts with SMART.
We probably should, just to
Yeah.
put down in writing
No,
what our understanding.
I think it's very important that we do that. I do agree with Commissioner Drollet, and I agree in general the county needs to get into some contracts. I mean, we've had some situations with IT recently where there were certain contractors operating without a contract, and recently this board said, nope, you're going to have a year contract. We're going to see how much it costs, and we'll reevaluate it. So the main thing I care about is the timeline issues that were addressed. If we approve the levy, that does not bar us or preclude us from going into some type of contract negotiations with SMART for next year so that we're covered.
Not at all.
Okay.
Matter of fact, when they pay us the 18, I thought we were gonna have to do it when they pay the 18 grand. I think they're just gonna, or the 16 or whatever it is, I think they're just gonna do it, but on good faith. And by the way, there's nothing wrong in relying on good faith. It's just that we relied on a little too much of it, in my opinion. You can't put everything in a contract, so you have to rely on good faith between the parties, so.
No, I understand that, but we can approve the levy. Can a motion be made to say I approve the levy subject to contract?
I would just approve the levy. We'll cut the
Okay.
deal. They're paying us 16 grand without, you know.
Okay.
They
Okay.
want a contract, just to straighten things out, too.
Okay.
It benefits both sides to have a contract in this situation.
Well, and the contract, just to clarify, the contract with them would be what type of services they're going to provide for our residents? Can
Yes.
you get that, absolutely that detailed?
That
Okay.
should be that used to be in the contracts. And what
Right.
happened, like I say, after a while, this has been going on. I remember when this started, I worked for the circuit court when this was challenged. This was in 95, I think. And
Was
the
Leon around then,
taxpayer
too?
No, there was a commissioner named Mike Sessa around back then. Okay? and Mike Sessa filed a lawsuit to say that this levy was illegal, and Judge Bruff had the case and ruled that it was, and the method by which this county assesses is proper. So, I mean, there is some background to this. And then we had contracts back then, and like I say, after a while, everything's working smoothly, and next thing you know, people go, well, this is the way it works, and they stop doing the contracts. So
Okay.
that's the situation we're in.
Okay.
And all we would do is be putting things back in writing.
Okay, fair enough. Thanks for coming down, whoever called you.
Oh,
Appreciate
no
it.
problem.
Commissioner Gillette.
I don't think I have anything more to add other than our legal staff is doing a fine job in the work that they're doing. And it certainly would be easier just to rely on good faith and continue doing things like we're doing, because if we withheld money or made demands, he might have to do more work. And, it's easier just to keep going the way it's been going. But we miss an opportunity to better serve our constituents if we do that. So I get it. I think everybody here agrees, at least from the those that have spoke, that we think that there could be some things, we should get some things in writing. Maybe there's even things we could do to improve the relationship and improve the service. I just worry that we're going to lose leverage if SMART says, well, they've already approved the money. What do we care about meeting some of their maybe particular demands about service changes and things like that? They'll sign a contract as long as it's status quo. If we demand changes, well, what are you going to do to us? We already got the money coming in. So that's why I'll still be voting no on this part.
Okay, thank you. And that's exactly why I pressed the button to speak, was to respond to the term leverage. If we legally have to do this because the voters voted for it, then we don't have.
No, that's not true, Madam Chair.
Well, he said it was a
if
gray
we
area.
approve a road millage, if voters approve a road millage, that doesn't mean that we have to give it to any contractor without any questions asked, and there's no way we can demand a certain service level to fix the roads.
That was one of the questions, Frank, is this a SMART millage or is it a county millage?
It's a SMART. Well, technically, it's a county millage, okay? But the county, the way the law reads is the millage specifies it's to be used for SMART. So we can only use this money for SMART. We're restricted
SMART was on, the term SMART was on the ballot.
Right. The term SMART was on the ballot, so we can only use this money for SMART. The SMART is not allowed to do a levy on its own by statute. It has to go to communities and ask the communities to levy. And then the statute says, may have a contract, so it foresees the need for it to have something in writing if a community does a levy.
Okay, and so the second thing I was going to say about that, and I don't see any other speakers, but is if we've got a short timeline, and I'm assuming that we do, what I don't want is a rushed contract. I want them to do a contract right. I want them to get the important things in there. That's my opinion. But anyway, this is to forward to tomorrow. No more questions? Please vote. Way. Motion passes 11-2 with Commissioner Carabelli and Gillette voting no. Okay, next agenda item, budget reviews. We have the treasurer's office. Well, 11-2 is, 11-2 adds up to 13.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, she got it.
Okay.
She just wants to know.
Good afternoon again, Commissioners. Treasurer's Office budget on page 102 of your agenda, according to at least the agenda that was printed for me earlier today. Page C64 of the actual budget document. My comments are very, very brief here. Deputy Treasurer Joe Biondo and Investment Officer Christina Miller are here. Mr. Biondo can answer any detailed questions about the budget. Really, a very, very little change in the budget at all. No new positions. See, supplies and services budget, we reduced about $7,000. The other operating line items, very, very consistent with prior years. About a $2.3 million operation, 28 folks in the general fund. So with that, I'll turn the floor over to Mr. Biondo.
Thank you, Steve. Hello, Commissioners. I don't have much to add. I think you all recall when I came before the board last year during the budget season that it indicated that we did everything we could to trim the fat, so to speak, from the budget. That's why today we're asking or recommending to the board a budget that does not really deviate from last year's budget. Other than that, I'm more than happy to answer any questions any of you might have on the budget.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Leonetti.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to commend Joe, your department, along with Treasurer Rocca. You know, Steve has been doing these sheets, and you are the first department, and I'm going to bet you're the only department that if you look, your budget is below the CPI. So I want to commend you on that. That's, I guess you're the Treasurer's office. I guess that's kind of leading by example. And this is one commissioner that appreciates that type of trend, seeing your budget below what the CPI is. And hopefully we can get some other departments to work that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Chair. Let me just echo that again so that it makes an impression. We appreciate what you do. It's a shame that there are other departments, and I realize there's different situations, but here's 2 years in a row. You've toed the rope. You've kept everything in line. You didn't come to us with your hand out again above budget prices, and I personally appreciate it, and I'm sure every commissioner here does. So thank Mr. Rocca for us also. Thank you.
Thank you,
That's all I
sir.
have, Chair.
Thank you. I don't see any other commissioners on here.
Crystal, when we had talked before, it was my understanding that with the budget presentation, we were going to get a presentation on why the treasurer's office is not accepting plastic for payments.
Yeah, I'd like to address that. I had called Crystal because as we were preparing for today's presentation on that, something that we're working on that's related to this is a RFP that will be rolling out in first quarter of next year. And I thought it might be beneficial to the board to hear sort of what the payment options have been in the past in the county treasurer's office, but also have a discussion over where we're looking to go starting in January of next year. I'm hoping to do that at I believe the next Finance Committee date is November 28th that I was looking at. So we will be doing that as you requested at a previous board meeting. I just wanted some additional time to include some new information that I'm waiting on that process.
So what is the status right now? You're still not accepting credit cards or any type of plastic?
So I think, even though it's not on the agenda line, I'll just briefly say this. The county accepts credit cards for various services that the county provides. That's all authorized through the county treasurer's office. The county treasurer's office specifically, when it comes to the delinquent property taxes, in situations where after the taxpayers go through the process that we go through to basically collect their financial information, determine what we can do for payment plans, we do have the option available to certain taxpayers to pay by credit card. It's treated as a last resort, and there's a number of reasons why that is, in the opinion of the county treasurer, and I agree with them, good public policy, and I'm looking forward to expand on that further when we come back before the board to give that presentation.
Okay, I was there the other day and I got a certification on a deed. It was a $5 charge. It was not, you can't use a credit card. So it's not just, it's not just delinquent taxes. It's any service up there or down there that you're not, so you're not accepting credit card payments for anything. Is that correct?
We are accepting credit card payments for specific cases in terms of delinquent taxes. As far as a tax certification, we are not accepting credit card payments at this time.
And what's the reason for that?
The reason for that is, and this is getting to the presentation we're going to be presenting down the road, but we're looking to establish a countywide contract with a single credit card service provider. This is a major undertaking. The previous treasurer that was the county treasurer for quite a long time, Mr. Wabi, for whatever reason, never went there. And we are planning on going there. The reason I mentioned Mr. Wabi is because during that time, he essentially allowed us departments in the county to set up their own individual contracts with various credit card service companies. So it's a bit complicated to go from a system where we have essentially a number of vendors with various departments to get to a position where we can have one credit card service provider for the whole county. Once we make that transition in the treasurer's office, we are planning on allowing people to pay with a credit card for services because we think that's appropriate. The only exception to that would be delinquent property taxes, where we would save that as a last resort. And there's a number of reasons why that's the case. And again, I'd suggest to the board that I would, I think it'd be more appropriate to get into that when we give that presentation.
Okay, well, I've been waiting for the presentation for several months, and I keep asking about it. And I mean, I think it's pretty clear that I'm opposed to the treasurer deciding who can and cannot pay by credit card. I'm also opposed to the other departments. I mean, I was able to walk over to the Register of Deeds and pay transfer tax on credit card, but I couldn't pay a $5 deed certification card charge in your office. So, I mean, that is an area that I will look forward to, and I hope that the presentation doesn't get delayed again. Thank you.
Thank you, and you're correct, it's not on the agenda, but in fairness to Commissioner Toko, she asked for this a long time ago. When you do give that presentation, I'd like to know the definition of, you said in certain circumstances. I'd like to know how you determine those circumstances. That I would like that part of the presentation. This is a motion to receive and file. Let me get the motion and then I'll call on you. Moved by Romano, supported by Leonetti. Commissioner Drollet.
When you come back and make that presentation, I know we're on the agenda item of things not on the agenda right now. I'm not harassing you, I'm just making a light joke, but it's fine. I'm curious as to, you mentioned that you don't think it's in the best interest of the county to have multiple or different departments having different agreements with different credit card vendors and so forth. It'd be interesting to know, what the downsides of that are. Has there been problems with having that? Are we paying too much? I know credit cards obviously receive a fee and so forth. So if you could include that as part of the presentation, why we need a single vendor as opposed to apparently what's been happening now is the different departments do choose their different vendors.
Thank you. I appreciate all the input, and we'll look to address that all at that presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Leonetti.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yet going along with what Commissioner Drollet said, I know for a fact that the clerk's office uses Square, and I use Square in my business, and it can be kind of high. I think there are other vendors out there, and I don't know if you're looking for that. You're indicating you're looking at an RFP. So I think a little due diligence might help, because in my business, I know Square, it's very convenient, yet it's expensive. So I know there's other vendors out there that provide services maybe for a cheaper rate in a big operation like our county. So something to consider.
It's definitely an issue that deserves serious attention, and it's being given serious attention by the county treasurer, and we hope to address all your concerns.
Am I to understand, too, that I think you said that you guys make that call. It's the treasurer's office that makes that call. That would affect all departments, including the clerk's office as well?
Yeah, so there's a resolution that the board passed that confirms what the charter says, that essentially, as the custodian of all county funds, the treasurer has that authority. Now, this would be something that we would do in consultation with all the county-wide officials and department heads to make sure that their needs are addressed for their specific departments. And the whole philosophy as far as exploring this with an RFP is, to your point, see if we can get a better deal for the county and yet still meet the individual needs of each department.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I don't see any other speakers, so please vote. All right, motion passes 13-0.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Justice and Public Safety Committee recommendations. I didn't hear that there was any issue. Can I take A and B at the same time? Moved by Kraft, supported by, did you say support? By Commissioner Brown? I don't see any speakers. Please vote. Motion passes 13-0. Infrastructure and Economic Development Committee recommendations, we're going to take A and B together. Is there a motion?
Can I separate B, please?
Separate B?
Yes.
Okay, then we'll take them all individually. Okay, so motion to approve A, the M.com, moved by Myjack, supported by Gillette. Please vote. Motion passes 10-0. Okay, item B, proposal the Greenway Collaborative. Is there a motion? Moved by Carabelli, support? Support by Commissioner Brown. Any questions? Seeing none, please vote. Keep writing on myself. Motion passes 11-1 with Commissioner Gillette voting no. Item C, budget amendment, IT UPS battery replacement. Is there a motion? Moved by Commissioner Lucido, supported by Commissioner Leonetti. Chair Smith.
Thank you. We had a lot of discussion on this and D, the next one, last meeting. And a few of us had mentioned the fact that it's time to start looking at what's an emergency and what's not, and what's appropriated and what isn't. So I'm going to tell you that right now, the latest numbers that we got from IT in their capital outlay shows that the second quarterly report shows that IT has only spent 44% of their budget, which leaves, I don't know, what, $5.4 million in capital funds. And they're coming to us for money for both Comtech, which I agree we need to make sure that we have, but I don't know why we're asking for new money when there's money in the IT fund already. To me, you take money out of there for emergencies first, like this, and safety items first, and then the ones that are left in there that aren't so emergency get moved to next year. So they're asking for new money with money sitting in hand, plenty of money to pay for all of this in their budget. So my recommendation is maybe we make a motion to approve the purchase, but ask them to find it out of already appropriated money. So, I mean, I would make that motion. And I don't know how this, you need to.
Okay.
You're the chair. How would you like to?
Her motion was simply to forward it to the full board. But if you want to change what's going to be forwarded, then you should, this isn't a budget
Well,
amendment.
how about this? I'm gonna leave this for food for thought. Let's move it tomorrow. We're not approving it today. So I just want to point this out. If tomorrow we decide that we want to ask Steve about this money in the account, and how every single cent of this down to $50,000 or $72,000 is already earmarked for something. I'd like to hear what it's earmarked for, and maybe we should say, well, I'm sorry, I don't think this project is worth not taking the $72,000 out of, because we do have to say no at some point. We have money in the account. Though the fact that they want to use it for something else is something that we might need to discuss with them tomorrow. So I'll be in favor of moving it to tomorrow, but I think we need to think about appropriated money that's still sitting there not being used, as opposed to new money out of general fund. That's it. And I'll vote to move it forward tomorrow, but I just want
to clarify something. Okay, so the motion, I wasn't at the meeting where this took place, but the motions that took place at the Infrastructure and Economic Development were for the budget amendment and the purchase for both of these items. So what I'm asking, yes, but she didn't combine it on the agenda, as you noticed. So what I'm asking is that the motion maker agree that it's budget amendment and purchase, and that'll be what goes to full board. No, well, both of them should say the purchase as well. They both should say that. Actually, usually the separate line item is there.
One is
So,
for the contract policy being followed, and the other is for the appropriation. Normally, Crystal would have, normally she'd have it separated.
So what's going to happen is if you approve saying the budget amendment and purchase, tomorrow's agenda should have them as two separate line items. That would make it a lot easier to address tomorrow. So if you'll make that motion, that's been agreed upon, and it'll be two separate line items tomorrow, and we can address each individually. With that, sorry about that, Commissioner Gillette.
So a quick request through the chair to the chair. That chair.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Commissioner, you mentioned that they have 44% of their budget that's been expended this year. 44% of their total.
In IT.
Oh, in IT's budget.
In IT's, is it total budget? I'm sorry, I'm going to ask Jen. Here, pull your mic up there, please. Because it's a lot easier for you to just explain
It can't be their
too.
total IT budget.
No.
It's got to be.
Go ahead.
So, based upon the second quarterly report
Second quarterly report.
that the board just received, they have utilized 44.5% of their budget.
Of their total budget, or
That was
of
second
their-
quarter,
of
Steve.
their
Second quarter.
Yeah, their total. Well, their total. It would be the first and second quarter, and so they have a remaining 5.4 million available within that budget. Now, it could be spoken for in. I mean, a lot of that is in personnel. So there's some overtime costs, but there was 1.1 million that was included for capital outlay in that line. And again, the way that the board receives the budget information is kind of all compacted together. So I think one of the questions to ask would be, what is that 1.1 million spoken for? Is there, this amount available that can be used for that? Only less than 1% has been spent out of that 1.16 million. That was
So, through the chair to Jen, does that mean that if we extrapolated this, very simply put, if the third and fourth quarter went along the lines of the first and second quarter, there'd still be 12% of their budget in theory at the end of the year?
In simple math, yes.
Well, in simple math, but unfortunately, the way that things get transferred in and out of accounts, sometimes they're not accumulated or until later on in the year. So if there are charges for services that this fund will pay, but they haven't been accounted for the first 6 months, and they'll come up in the third or fourth quarter payment, then they'll hit then. So it depends on how finance actually handles those dollars in and out. I think what seems reasonable from just looking at the numbers here is to ask the department, do you have the funds available within your existing appropriation? If they have built in some cushion into their budget, those funds might be available for some unexpected.
Okay, well, I think that is a worthwhile question, though. It is important to get answered because there may be certain payments they have to make that aren't reflected in the first year that they're contractually required to make.
So just back to what I'm saying, though, is that's a big picture of where we're at with their whole budget. My point is that in their, so last year we transferred over $11.7 million in capital projects. And almost immediately they told us they were all spoken for, right? That whole $11.7 million was spoken for. Well, listen, even if this is spoken for, it's not spoken for in an emergency service situation like this, that's the time to say, all right, we're going to unspeak this project that doesn't really mean that much, and we're going to put that $72,000 towards something that's more of an emergency.
Okay,
so I
so-
think we need to ask the question. I'll ask Steve, and we'll get with them and let them know we're going to be asking these questions. I am just sure that there is money in this budget right now without moving money over from general fund to find $72,000 for batteries in it. I'm not saying we don't need them, but we all question the way that they're just blanketing the 5 years and not even, we had some conversations about that. Who was telling us it was every 5 years? Well, of course, it was a company that we're buying the new batteries from. So that's a second different topic. But there is no way that we don't have $72,000 that they could find for this money already appropriated, that they wouldn't even have to ask us for just to approve the contract for it.
Okay, thank you very much.
That's where I'm at with it.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other speakers, so please vote. Motion passes 12-0. Item D will be the budget amendment and the purchase of the CourtView software to be placed on tomorrow's agenda as two separate line items. Moved by Commissioner Brown, supported by Commissioner Leonetti. And is this, okay. Commissioner Leonetti.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm going to assume the same thing here. We're gonna split it up. Okay. And let me just say, I wasn't here for the meeting, but I did do my due diligence. I talked to Tony, who's here right now in the audience. These things are actually things that we're going to want to consider. I agree that we can probably get the $53,000 from other than the capital fund, but believe me when I tell you, this stuff is going to increase productivity in the courts in a tremendous way. It's going to free up court clerks so that they don't have to deal with things that the public need on a basis. So it's going to enable us to have a more streamlined service. I might even say this, which people might not like, it's going to in some sense eliminate the need to hire more people, okay? Because as e-filing services get bigger and bigger, that's what's going to jam up people. That's what's going to require us to get more people to come in and hire. What we don't need to do is keep the old software and then have to hire more people to keep up with the flow. If you use this particular service, the CourtView service, it's going to enable the public to handle things in a much more on their own. It's also going to enable to free up the clerks so they don't have to do back work. So just something to consider. I'll be happy to talk to anybody about it on an individual basis, but it's not something I'm vouching for because I'm an attorney and I deal with the courts. It's actually something that after talking to Tony, I completely understand, and I've talked to some of the clerks as well. So just something to consider for tomorrow. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair Smith.
Thank you. Again, I am not saying that this isn't going to do everything that he says that it's going to do. My point is that we have already, so at the beginning of the year, we allotted X amount of money into our general fund for capital project money. We have already given more than that amount back to capital projects, which means we've overspent this year's budget already, technically, right? So my concern is not that this will not do what what Tony says it will do. My concern is that if it's that much of an emergency and that much of an advantage, the executive's office or finance needs to find this money that's existing already and bump another project off the list. I mean, we are at the point right now where a good project should always take precedent over a project that may not be, and that's what I'm recommending, is that they find a way to move this up if they so desire, the finance and the executive's office. I'm not going to say whether it's the best thing in the world or it should trump other items that are spoken for, but I haven't even been started yet. But I think we should be looking at bumping things rather than providing new money and going deeper into the general fund than we had already planned on last year.
Just if I may, Madam Chair.
Quickly, Commissioner.
Is the same thing here? Is this coming out of the court or is this coming out of IT's department? And my question then would be, if it's coming out of IT, we just heard they only spent about 44% of their budget this year.
It's coming out of general fund money.
Right. Well, this looks like it's saying it's out of the capital fund. On the
it's a budget amendment to move money, move more money out of the fund balance into that fund.
But couldn't this be something that they already have available to them that we're talking about?
That's my
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm completely with you on that.
And even if they don't have it, my point is, they should be looking at this project as we can't just keep adding projects. We're gonna have to bump something down the line. We're gonna have to kick a can sooner or later down the line.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair, for a little leeway.
Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In somewhat response to Commissioner Leonetti, and I totally agree, it's going to speed things up and make it completely easier. My question yesterday, and as you said, you unfortunately weren't here, was if it's going to do so great and it's going to be so fast and it's going to eliminate so much work, are we going to eliminate an employee? And the answer was probably not. And that's my concern. The same thing. This is not something that they absolutely need. This is something that they want. And the delay caused by not installing this, if I'm correct, and please correct me if I'm wrong, was probably about a day and a half longer that it takes now, a day and a half to do this, whereas before you can do this immediately online. So I understand they want it. I totally agree with Chair Smith. They want it. Find it in their budget to do it without coming to us for additional money. That's all I have. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Commissioner Carabelli.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I didn't plan on speaking on this because I thought I spoke quite a bit on it the last time. But with that said, Commissioner brought up some points that I just want to make things crystal clear again. Anthony did his due diligence and did a great job and brought a project forward to us. I didn't say it doesn't have any merit. But for 3 years, we live without this. 3 years. Now, we want to spend $50,000, number one. Number two, there's a possibility that this program in a few years could change. So you're spending $50,000 plus the $5,000 a year, and it could change in 2 years. So, no. It's the taxpayers' dollars. At the end of the day, we don't have any money. I don't know if anybody's looked at the forecast out there. I have. Doesn't look rosy. So, is it a need or a want? To me, this sounds like a want, not a need. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And before I call on the vote very quickly, sorry, I'm quick. I just wanted him to understand something, which you may not have known. We've been deficit spending every year for the last couple of years, and we even planned on deficit spending going into this year, and we've been having people come to us to move more money out of the general fund, which was even more deficit spending than we originally planned at the beginning of the year. I don't know how commissioners feel about it. Tomorrow will be the test on that because I think it'll move to tomorrow. But if it doesn't pass, that doesn't necessarily mean that commissioners aren't in favor of it. It may mean just not in this budget cycle, in next budget cycle. So I just wanted to let you know that. Okay, so we've got to move.
Provide a couple of comments, if you don't
mind.
mind.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
The only thing I just wanted to address, because like I said, I was here yesterday and I, provided some, answers to some of the questions. But I guess from the court's perspective, I just want to be everybody's aware that every year I do a court IT budget. I submit that budget to Jaco and his department. Jaco never sends me any communication back. Jaco never tells me yes or no. Jaco never says, go ahead and order that. I basically submit a budget every year, and for 2018, I submitted that budget in July of 2017. So I do make these requests to the county IT budget, to the county IT department. They then kind of weave it into their budget. When you mentioned that they've spent only 44% of their budget, I mean, that's news to me. I'm not aware of that either. I make my requests, it goes through their department, and I expect them to kind of follow up me. And if anything they need from the court, I always supply and give that information. So that whole process, I'm kind of out of it. So I don't know that budgeting process. I don't know what Jaco has to go through, and I can't speak to any of that. But for sure you're aware, every year I do an annual court IT budget. I always put in enhancements for CourtView. Some of these enhancements actually have been on the list for multiple years. I don't know why they're asking for a capital adjustment if they do have money in their account. That question would be for the IT department.
Yeah,
Yep.
I think one of the questions there is it may be money that's committed. For instance, if there's salaries, we know we have to pay those people. We can't spend their money. It may be committed money. I think that's the thing we don't necessarily have an answer on.
Sure, and I understand.
Chair Smith, is this still, or, okay. Okay, so
Thank
with
you all.
that, we have a motion in support. Okay, please vote. Yeah, it'll be separated into two different things. Okay, motion passes 10-2, with Commissioner Drollet and Commissioner Carabelli voting no. Okay, new business. Does anyone have any new business? Seeing none, I just want to say good job, Commissioner Drollet, in spotting the smart contract thing. Public.
We spotted it together.
Okay. Public participation? Seeing none. Motion to adjourn. Moved by Commissioner Romano, supported by Commissioner Kraft. Please vote.
Yes. Gotcha.